Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or as we like to say here at Shady Acres Woodshop, howdy! Today let's practice on some construction grade lumber. A lot of folks have a hard time finding decent hardwood. It can be expensive, it can be hard to find. I know this is what I used when I first started turning 50 years ago. Holy smokes. And no, I haven't been a wood turner for 50 years. That's just when I bought my first lathe. I turned a couple of things and went back to woodworking for 50 years, or 46. I've been a wood turner now for about 4 years, or 6 months before I started my channel, something like that. Anyway, this is a 2x8. Measures actually 1.5 by 7.25 wide. This is just some leftover material from fixing my fence that the storm blew down. You can see it's not tight grain. It's fir. It is kiln dried, although when I bought this it had been sitting out in the rain, so I'm sure it's not completely dry now. But it's just kiln dried, just common, ordinary, number 2 and better lumber. It's got knots in it. Often will have cracks in it. It'll have broken away corners, stuff like that. That doesn't hurt anything. You know, that's right on the corner. You're gonna turn that away. I cut this piece out of this piece. Same stuff. So I've got a 7.25 inch circle here. I've drilled a hole in it for my woodworm screw, and I'm gonna practice with it. So let's mount it up and see what happens. You hear my heater going, that's because it's 34 degrees out here. Now some people don't like to use these woodworm screws. They think they don't hold well. They think it's going to come flying off of that one little old screw. Well, it's not. I've never even had a close call. It holds very well. I don't have any qualms about using it at all. I like to spin the piece up a little bit before I bring in my live center, just so that I know it's finding the perfect center. Now I do see this piece has a crack right here. It comes down here about 2 inches and goes over here about 3/4 of an inch. But it stops in the middle here and doesn't go up any further, so we'll probably end up cutting that away. And we're not going to get an art piece out of this. We're just practicing is all. And something this size, 7.25 inch diameter, easily turned on the smallest of lathes. I'm going to turn the speed up here to about 1200 RPM. I'm going to grab a 5/8 inch bowl gouge and get my mask and face shield on, and we'll get at it. Now, I don't really have a shape in mind at all. You can always look online, tons of pictures. Just look for something like bowl design or something like that. Bowl shapes, whatever. So I put a little cove in here. That might look nice. If you decide you don't like it, just turn it away. You can see it cuts pretty cleanly for a soft wood, very soft wood. That's because this is super sharp. And that's probably the hardest thing for people to learn. You need sharp tools. And pretty sharp isn't good enough. They need to be sharp. So I'm afraid that takes an investment, probably more than your lathe might have cost. But that's just, you know, if you're going to have a hobby, it's going to cost money. So what are we going to do here? I don't know. I think I'll put a recess in here. It's not a very thick piece, and when I'm doing thinner pieces, I like to use a recess rather than a tenon. I didn't even mark for it. I don't know if that's, looks about right, doesn't it? It's a little tiny bit big, but it'll work. Now I have a special tool for putting a dovetail on the inside of this recess, but not everyone has that, and you don't need one. You can just use a skew like this. And that's plenty deep enough for a small piece like this. Well, let's just go back over here and work on the profile. And again, I don't know what I want to do here. Well. Okay, I put a straight edge on here. That'll give us a chance to put some kind of decoration on it maybe. Now this is a pretty wide bottom, but maybe this is just a utility bowl. Maybe you're just going to keep this right out in the shop and put small parts in it or nuts and bolts or whatever. So we'll go ahead and leave it that size. So let's sand it. Now those that watch me normally know that I usually use a drill powered 2-inch disc sander to sand my pieces, but not everybody has that. I also have strip sandpaper, and not everybody has strips of sandpaper either. You can just get sheets of sandpaper and get some old scissors and cut it up into strips. I'm going to go ahead and use this just because it's here and it's easy. And I'm just going to hold it here. I'm going to turn the speed down about 350 RPM. Whoa. Don't let it get away from you though. Again, I'm not, this is not an art piece. This is a practice piece. I probably shouldn't even be sanding it. And I'm just going through the steps here. I have these old discs that I just hang on to for little jobs like this, and I mark them. I started at 80 on this. I probably shouldn't have. It wasn't that bad, but I started at 80, then 100, now 120. I just want it smooth enough that when I pick it up and put my little parts in it, I won't get a sliver. I'm not trying to make a showpiece here. You can certainly spend the time and make this probably nice looking. Okay, that's 240. That's pretty nice. Let's get some finish on it. What are we going to use? Well, we're going to use Howard Feed & Wax, of course. Why not? Quick and easy. This is the way I prefer to apply finish, but if you want to spin the piece up, you just hold your rag there. You can do that too. I don't think it covers as well, so I like to actually rub it into the wood. This is one pretty ugly shape that I picked out here, but you know, just anything works when you're practicing. You're just practicing. And you've got free wood. I'm thinking that you can probably stop by a lot of construction sites and say, hey, if I pick up all these little scraps around here, clean up the place for you, can I have some? They'd probably say, take all you want. And all you need is, you know, 12-inch square pieces or 8-inch square pieces, whatever. Or, you know, 2x4s. You can do this with 2x4s, same material, just be something smaller is all. Or you could, of course, glue these together. And you could glue them together in patterns and probably get some nice looking stuff out of it. Now normally with this finish, you let it set for 20 minutes or a half an hour and then buff it off. We're not going to do that. I've just got this rag here that I've been using for Howard feed and wax for quite some time. I'm just going to pick the speed up here about 500 or 600 RPM and just buff that off. Nice. Well, let's put a decoration or two on there. Maybe I'll just put a groove or two right here. I'm just going to use this half inch skew chisel. I'm just going to stick the point of it in here. Or if you want to get fancy, you can make one of these out of a screwdriver, like I did, and just poke it right in there. Flat side up so that it's cutting on both edges. It's going to do the same thing. Cuts more of a V groove than the Skew does. Then if you want to get extra fancy, you can make one of these, a burn wire. It's got a little wooden handle on each end, and you can burn that slot you just made. Turn your lathe speed up. When you see some smoke, you got a nice burn there. Move on to the next one. Woo, fancy. Beautiful. Nice job. You got this. Let's see if we can get it off of that woodworm screw. Yes, we can. It holds very well. What's important with the woodworm screw is that you have a flat area for the front of the jaws to set against. If it's all wavy and cracked or something, it's not going to sit evenly. It's going to set at an angle like this, and it's going to come off of there. But if this is flat and you've drilled your hole, pre-drilled for your woodworm screw, this is a 3/8 inch. I drilled a 5/16 inch hole, perfect fit. It's not going to come off. It might break away, you know. If, like here's that crack. It's not getting any better. It's getting worse. There's that crack. So it could have split in half because of the crack, but not because of the woodworm screw. Now let's mount it up on the recess. When you do this, listen to the wood when you're opening the jaws up into that recess. I don't feel that way about a tenon so much, but with a recess you need to listen to the wood and make sure you don't hear cracking sounds like I kind of thought I heard there. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't, who knows. Now we'll just hollow it out. Still turning at, where were we, about 1200 RPM, mask and face shield on. Now I just don't trust myself, even though I've been turning for a little while now. I just like to check. Okay, I've got about a 1/2 inch. Bet I don't have a 1/2 inch now. Well, I still do have a 1/4 inch, which is probably a good place to stop for a utility bowl that you're just gonna throw things in. You don't want it to be so thin that it's no good. Okay, I've kind of rounded over this outside edge just slightly. Rounded over the inside edge just so that it's comfortable. No slivers. I will take my scraper. Now that big old scraper won't get into this inside corner here. So I'm using a 1-inch. See, now we have some tear out, and that's from the scraper. I wouldn't have got that with my gouge if I was good enough with the gouge to get a smooth finish in there, which I'm not. And then that can happen. What do you think of that? And that's why you have a dovetail. See, it's still on there. Well, that was probably that crack, wasn't it? But you know, well, see, that's me. I dug my gouge in there. I did that. And you might do it too. But you see, it didn't go flying across the room or anything. It just landed right here. No biggie. I could glue it back together, but I'm not going to. Well, I think that's just part of practicing. I never considered myself an expert. So don't let that get you down. It didn't cost you anything. Start over. How long that take? 15 minutes for the whole bowl, finished and all? It's just not a big deal. So what did we learn? Well, we learned that experienced turners make mistakes as well. And that is my mistake. Quite obvious. But look at that finish. I mean, that's a decent looking bowl on the outside, huh? Got your fancy lines on there. Could have been useful for whatever. In the house or out in the shop, doesn't matter. Just practice, 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 practice. Do it on cheap wood, free wood. So there you go. That's the lesson for the week. If you're a subscriber, thank you very kindly. I truly appreciate that. If you're not a subscriber, you might consider becoming one. I put out regular videos about one a week, and I'd like to keep in touch. An easy way to subscribe is just click my picture you see there near the end of the video. Your comments are always welcome, and I read all of them. So for now, this is Phil, Shady Acres Woodshop, signing off.